Well, the Lancet was founded 200 years ago as a medical journal, but it was also founded as an idea. It was founded as an instrument for social reforms, as a political weapon to advance health as an idea in the public sphere. That's what we're trying to do today, to reinvent that idea for a new generation, for a new century, for a new set of challenges that humanity faces. We are trying to make a diagnosis, and we've identified these 5 themes that we've called spotlights: climate and health, universal health coverage, child and adolescent health, mental health, and research for health. These are the areas that we think have been neglected and which are absolutely critical for our future.
Climate affects almost every aspect of health to varying degrees. Climate is the kind of context in which we live. So if you change the climate, you change all kinds of factors. What crops you can grow, what water that's available. The populations become exposed to certain vector-borne diseases that they weren't previously exposed to. Since the Industrial Revolution, we've essentially built most of our progress on the back of fossil fuel exploitation. And we've got a very positive narrative around that, about this being a good thing and developments all being positive. And there's obviously an element of truth to that. A huge number of people have been brought out of poverty. Huge strides have been made in medical science. But the problem is that it's now starting to get to the point where it's causing destruction. You might say that we've got to the point where climate change is now a chronic disease.
For the climate crisis, we need to lead by example. And if we could decarbonise our health systems globally, that would make a massive contribution to reducing the threat from the climate emergency in the coming years.
You know, the best time to have done this would have been 20 years ago, but the next best time to do it is today and tomorrow. You know, change can happen, and it can happen quickly. Science and evidence can only take you so far. You need to act on it.
For the first time in the history of our species, we have the opportunity to end preventable mortality for children and their mothers within a generation.
You know, politicians love to cuddle a baby, but I'm not sure that always translates into actual action. Children often at the moment don't have a voice. They're not in a position to advocate for their health needs. Older children are, but we often don't listen to them. They often don't have a lot of political capital. In the 80s, neonates and infants often weren't given anaesthetics when they were undergoing operations. They would be given sedatives to paralyse them, but they wouldn't have any painkillers. Because it was felt they didn't feel pain. It took people that were actually really thinking about the children as individuals to advocate for that change.
Research is the engine that can drive progress. There's no other invention from humankind better than science to generate reliable knowledge, to give us the opportunity to solve the problems that lie in front of us.
There's a lot that we still have to do about participation in trials for the public. You have these big hubs of universities that run the trials, and they're usually in the major cities. In Brazil, I see this in Peru and in Mexico. So someone that has to travel days will never enroll in that trial. That's bad for everyone. We are going through growing anti-science phase. Diseases that were nearly eradicated through vaccination coming back. And I think that the scientific community, and I put myself in the scientific community, we need to accept our responsibility to better communicate.
Our history isn't straightforward. We were founded in 1823, right at the height of the British Empire. And there's no question that the journal profited from slavery and from colonialism. So we owe reparations, but we also need to look to the future because colonialism isn't over today. We have a different kind of colonialism. The rich and the powerful still dominate in this world, and we need to make sure that we don't privilege only the rich and the powerful. We need to make sure that we listen and learn from all peoples, from all cultures. Everybody has to have a place in this global conversation. We want to accelerate the availability, the accessibility, the acceptability and the quality of healthcare around the world.
You know, not having universal health coverage is devastating for millions and millions of people on the planet. My great-grandfather arrived in the United States around the turn of the century in the 1900s, worked in a sweatshop factory in New York City. He lost an eye in that factory and had no access to health coverage. My family became extremely impoverished as a result. That still exists today. Everybody should have the right, regardless of their ability to pay, to have basic health care covered. But unfortunately, the vast majority of countries do not have anything resembling universal health coverage. The health of those individuals, if not covered, still affects the overall health of the society, and somebody is paying for that. We have success stories for universal health coverage on every continent, and so it does not make sense to not have countries working towards universal health coverage.
We overemphasize physical health in our society and pay too little attention to psychological dimensions of well-being.
Society affects mental health, and mental health affects society too. We can't deal with mental health without resolving the stigma and the discrimination against people living with mental health conditions. You need the society support, such as legislation. So not just a talk, not just the access to care, you need legislation to decriminalize mental health issues. If we miss the opportunity to treat their mental health issues well, that will be a big problem for our society in the future.
One thing we learnt during COVID-19 was that the world can, when it needs to, pivot. We've all started to understand that my health depends upon your health and your health depends upon my health. We are connected. We have an opportunity to prevent these issues from evolving into multi-crisis, poly-crisis, perma-crisis. These are major forces that are shaping the well-being of the global population. We want to shine a light on these 5 areas, ask some tough questions, get some answers, and use our anniversary year as a platform to project those answers across the world.